All right, welcome back to the Overflow Podcast. My name is Pastor Justin. Today is Wednesday. It's a little bit later in the week today, guys. We've had a lot of stuff going on, and our schedules haven't been working out too well. But tomorrow's the 4th of July. Y'all got any big plans for 4th of July?
I tell you, it looks like it's just going to be my wife and I tomorrow, and that is enough for me. But I tell you, looking like we're going to cook out. This is a great time of the year if you're a professional tennis fan, because this is the third of 4 Grand Slams. It always occurs around the week of the 4th of July. The Olympic schedule's got everything kind of discombobulated a little bit, but Wimbledon. Oh gosh,
I'm not much of a tennis fan.
I have
either.
I have not. I have never stood on a grass court before. It's a different surface. It's unique in and of itself. Played quite a bit on clay, played a lot of hard court tennis over the years, but this grass thing, it fascinates me. The ball is configured a little bit differently. The shoes, you got to wear a special set of shoes for this. It's just different. It's kind of like golf in the fact that the richest golf tournament in the world, I think, is considered to be U.S. Open. The title that everyone wants to win is the Masters because it's the most prestigious, not the richest. In tennis, you've kind of got this phenomenon, if you want to call it that, within the Grand Slams, because the U.S. Open is the richest tournament, but the one that everybody wants on their resume is Wimbledon. So you get some European players that know how to play on grass. It's a fast surface. You think, how does that play? It plays like hitting the ball off a pane of glass. And it's just different. It's different.
I have learned something new today.
I don't think I've ever seen a tennis court with grass.
You're not going to see many of them in this country. There's only one grass court tournament in this country, and it's the one in I believe it's Massachusetts or Rhode Island. Anyway, it's the Hall of Fame tournament, kind of. At
So
the
that
end of the
happens
summer.
on the 4th of July week? I mean,
Wimbledon,
most of the time?
the Grand Slam, is always going to involve the 4th of July holiday.
Yeah. So
And the Brits don't consider Independence Day to be any holiday they're going to be involved in celebrating.
So we're coming out of, really this week's Dead Week, for our kids. So at Gate City anyway. I think it's in Tennessee too, but so they're not allowed to be on any fields and any courts or any gyms. And so it's good for me because that's all we've been doing for the last, 11 months. 11 months and 3 weeks, So we just finished up our basketball with Braden and stuff. He had another tournament in Knoxville this week. We played the number 1 team in America, 7th grade team. Dunked on us 5 times.
I'd like to know how they calculate who the number 1 7th grade team is.
I don't
in
know.
America.
But they're from out of Orlando. They all spoke Spanish. That's what Braden said.
I just wonder if we could drive to West Virginia and we're going to find people up there saying, we got the number 1 7th grade team in America up here.
Well, these guys are pretty good. But we played right with them. Our guys did not back down. We ended up, at one point, I thought there was going to be just, because the team we played before, they beat that team by about 30. And I was like, oh, man, this is not going to be good. And they were all 6'2" and taller and very athletic. But our guys hung right in there. And at one point, I mean, their coach, he was so frustrated that we were playing with them that he called a timeout and made his team do push-ups right in the middle of the game. Because they were not playing well.
Yeah, boy,
but
coach.
we ended up finishing second in nationals. And so congratulations to the boys. But finally, we got a break. I mean, we're not doing anything, going anywhere. But I guess for the 4th, we'll just, I think we're just going to, Dad said, hey, y'all want to get together and do anything? And I was like, yeah, if you're going to throw something on the grill, sure.
Yeah.
So
I think they're going to extend my schedule from getting off at 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock to let me celebrate at work tomorrow. So I got extended. But however, we are going to celebrate this weekend with my family. So we do an outing with my family once a month. And I think we're going to go watch the Kingsport Axemen on Saturday evening and get a baseball game in.
There you go.
As a family and stuff.
y'all ever do the parade and stuff? I mean, when I was a kid, we went to the parade all the time. They used to have that big old bomber fly over. And I mean,
Oh,
it
yes.
was,
Yeah.
we would always kind of get there. I guess it's Center Street, ain't it? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Kingsport. And, that bomber would come over, man. I mean, it was like touching the tops of the trees, We always went, but now with our kids, I mean, they could care less about going to no parade, and as hot as it is, I don't want to go either, And then fireworks, I mean, we would always go. They would like have Kingsport fireworks. where Kmart used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we'd always go to, the Freedom Fireworks in Johnson City. We try to catch those. I think they're doing them in Weber City this year. Aren't they doing like fireworks?
Yeah, I think so.
But man, people shoot them off all night long around us and stuff.
So here's the question for you. What, if you can recall, I thought about this week, and we asked this question, what is the best fireworks show location you've been to? And for mine, Jacksonville, Florida, we went down there and they took a boat out in the ocean and shot them off out there over the bridge and everything. That was really cool.
Oh, gee whiz. That's a good one. Okay, you're going to laugh, but one of the best fireworks shows I was ever at.
Already laughing.
At the conclusion, and it could have been in conjunction with a holiday, is because it was as good as it was, but they did a fireworks show one night in Durham, North Carolina, after a Durham Bulls game that I looked at, my wife and I said, that was amazing. It was incredible what they did. They shot them off from the outfield area there. We were still in the stadium. Folks I was mesmerized by it, and I just thought, man, that's some pretty good stuff there. And a good ball game, too. Got to see Adley Rutschman that night, who's tearing it up in the majors right now, so it was good.
I don't really know. I think probably it wasn't for the 4th of July when the fireworks were shot off. The best one I saw. It's
Fun Fest is good.
Fun Fest is good, but then there's one in Knoxville. I think it's called Boomsday, or it used to be. Maybe they don't do it anymore. But it was around Labor Day, and that's where my wife's from.
Yeah, okay.
And they would do one there, and it was pretty good. We actually did one time at our church in Alabama, and we would do it was called. We would just do like a 4th of July thing, and we'd homemade ice cream, and we'd do fireworks. And we had this guy in the church there, and this is the first church I pastored. And we said, "Hey, we want to do this." And really, nothing around us in Alabama was doing it. I mean, you'd go to Birmingham, places like that, but that was an hour away. But we did this, so we kind of just did it. Some guys in the church got together and said, "Hey, we're going to show some fireworks." And sometimes that can go really good, and other times it can go really bad. And but we used to do one, and each year it would grow. We would go from, okay, it was just a little thing for a few families, and then it got so big. We was there for 3 years that people were stopping along Highway 77 to watch the fireworks.
That's awesome.
And so it was pretty awesome.
So out Amber's family out in Missouri, her uncle and them. And aunt, they have a huge campground and stuff, and it's a little tiny town. I mean, it's compared to Gate City, just a little tiny town. And everybody in that town, they bring four-wheelers, ATVs, they bring golf carts, they bring everything, and they all park in his yard. And then they go out behind the pond and they shoot fireworks. They spend so much money on fireworks and stuff, and they put on a show. I took the drone out there and was flying the drone through them and everything.
I think our friends up in Hilton's, they do a firework. They do it last weekend.
Somebody said that was an awesome show.
It is an awesome show, because I know some of the guys that do it, and they go to no expense. And if you've ever seen those videos, I mean, fireworks are great, they're beautiful, but man, when it goes wrong, I mean, have you seen the video that's on? I guess it's on YouTube or TikTok, Instagram, where there's this whole family sitting around and somebody knocks over the fireworks and they start flying in, and it's like, I mean,
is that the put it in reverse, Terry? You know what I'm talking about? I mean, so up around.
And fireworks, I mean, they're great to watch, but man, they can create some major issues.
Havoc, yes.
They can create a mess. That's what we talked about Sunday. And really that's kind of a segue into what we talked about Sunday. Was in the church now, things are going really good. It seems like things are multiplying. Then all of a sudden, there's some fireworks that start happening, and that's really where we're at in Acts chapter 6. That's what we talked about last week, is how that there's ministry is wonderful. We've seen different aspects of ministry as we've been going through the book of Acts, but the reality is that it creates a mess. Success makes a mess. Patrick Lencioni, we use this quote because that's where we're at in the book of Acts, is where, I mean, the church is multiplying. The church is seeing extraordinary growth, but now there's some problems that are starting to get created because of that within the church. And so it's success creates a mess. And when you first hear that, you're like, well, I mean, does that mean you just don't want us to be successful? And even when I preached Sunday, I hope people didn't go away with the takeaway like, well, I mean, if ministry is going to be this messy, let's just leave ministry and not do anything. But no, it really means that, things don't always go perfect. Even when there's growth, even when there's success, there's conflicts, there's problems, there's pain, there's what I call growth pains. There's a messiness to it, and we have to see that as a reality, because if we don't, then a lot of times we just give up and quit.
Listen, too often I think people are willing to, we would be willing, I think, as people, generally speaking, to put up with more at the places where we work, with the people we work with. I mean, folks will say certain things. We might get personally offended. We're always kind of working. Maybe we're a little bit on guard, but we still do our job and we still work with those people, and we're going to show up the next day for work. But church life is a little bit different because folks will check out sometimes over the least things. Now that's interrelational, but when we're talking about our willingness to get our hands dirty, and that's a figurative saying, okay? Ministry is, I think, a willingness to get our hands dirty, but remain vigilant and sensitive to the Holy Spirit so our hearts don't get stained. I think it's, if your desire is to serve the Lord faithfully, you better be willing to work through challenges. Mm-hmm. People are going to bring a lot of things to the table. You don't know. Listen, we don't stand at the back of the church as folks are coming in the doors, making their way to wherever they may reside for that particular service. We're not taking a name. We're not asking for a resume. We're not asking for personal history. We're just accepting people unconditionally. And folks sometimes are coming to church with all kinds of baggage behind them, a past history that feels like a ball and chain, consistently for them, but day to day they just feel like they're pulling a load. And if you're willing to walk with them long enough, or let me reverse that. If they're willing to walk with us long enough, they're going to reach a point in time where they're going to want to divest that. Mm-hmm. And that can be heavy. Yeah. We don't get, as ministry staff, the people don't engage us most of the time, I would be willing to say, with pleasant things. We're only going to be reached out to if there's a problem there. And that's part of ministry. It really is. And as churches grow and more people feel led to come, it's a sundry of things that folks are going to bring to the table there. And Holy Spirit will enable us to meet those things out, meet people where they are, love them along the way, and hopefully we're faithful in showing them Jesus as we continue to engage them.
Yeah, one of the things with being messy is compared to a short term and a long term. I recall a scenario a couple of years ago and stuff where I was involved with a ministry and stuff, and it seemed messy at the time, right in that situation, arguing and, this is right, this is what we should do, all this and everything. But you serving need to look at the long-term goal. It's a long-term gain, what is going to be the reward from this overall down the road, and so sometimes you just got to step back, and just picture, the long-term.
You bet. Holy Spirit, I think, is trying to remind us, you leave the end game to me. Mm-hmm. And you just remain faithful to me in the walk along the way. And we'll see. I'll show you where this is going to go. Because we may never see nor realize where things end up. And, you going back to Isaiah 55:11, where it talks about the fact that God's word will not go out without having some sort of effect. And I mean, in the King James Version and some of the modern translations, it will not return void. So, knowing that, any time that and I think you alluded to this in the message on Sunday morning, any time that the gospel message is proclaimed accurately and faithfully, it's a success. What we may be looking for in the moment may be a conversion, but no. Just being faithful to the gospel and being willing to reflect it to share it,
Mm-hmm.
model it, whatever.
I agree with that.
That's been a good thing. It's been a good work.
Well, and two, with growth pains, and unfortunately, this is the sad case, is it causes churches not to grow. Because what happens is, as we talked about, in our country, just in America, 90%, 9 out of 10 churches are either plateaued, they're at a point where they'll never go any farther, or they're declining, which many of them are, which equals to dying, because there's 4,000 churches. I think it's 4,000 churches either a month, or 4,000 churches, a year maybe. I don't know exactly quote, but there's a lot of churches that are shutting their doors, and that's why we're having to start new churches to try to reach these people, or churches that are plateaued and declined. There's a big movement called revitalization. And the reason is because some of these churches, when they do start growing and new people start coming in, the old guard, so to speak, kind of gets a little bit uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Because what happens is new folks, it's like the Jesus Revolution movie, when they started reaching these new messy people, the ones that were the elite of the day,
Hey, Chuck Smith had a mess on his hands.
Yes. Yeah. And it did create that, because there's people that left his church, but he was trying to reach these people. And unfortunately, and it's sad, is that, there's churches today that won't grow because they're afraid of that. They're afraid of losing some of the old guard, the older members. They're afraid of the change that comes with that. And it's not that you're changing the message or you're changing the mission, but a church that's running, 400 has to change the methods and how they do church from when they were 100. You can't sustain growth, and you will never increase growth if you don't. And so that was part of the issue that we looked at Sunday, was where, they were preaching and teaching every single day. They were in the houses, they were in the temples, people were getting saved left and right, and they were baptizing. They didn't have enough time to do anything else. And so there was the daily needs of the widows, specifically in this passage, that, it seemed like they were showing favoritism, because it seemed like one was being taken care of, one wasn't. I don't really think that was the case. I just think that it was the church had grown to a certain extent that it caused some pain, mm-hmm. that these people weren't being helped. And so they came up with a solution, the first deacons, but it created a mess. It created some problems, and that's what growth does. And we have to be willing to change. And, I think that's a wonderful thing about our church is, our church has experienced some growth over the past few years. And, we went from, one service at 11 o'clock over the years to 2 services, to 3 services, to another campus. And so it's not easy. It creates a mess. It creates headaches at times. But it's a beautiful mess. Think if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be reaching as many people, or it wouldn't be as many people coming to faith, and you wouldn't be impacting the kingdom of God. So we have to kind of get out of that mindset, like Austin said, and we got to look at the long term here. The short term, it makes you feel uncomfortable. I heard a guy say one time, the church is just getting too big for its britches. Well, what does that mean? Well, when I get too big for my britches, you know what that means? It means I'm uncomfortable. It means they don't fit like they used to.
That's true. And
what happens is when the church grows, Jesus said, I would build my church. So churches ought to be growing. God's not done saving people. God's not done reaching people. So what's the problem? Okay, America, we've turned away from the Lord. We can see that just, in our world, and our world's going to hell in a handbasket, is what people would say. But is that limited God? Look at the book of Acts. They were facing opposition, persecution left and right, and they were fearlessly standing for God. And God just kept, you're not going to stop God growing his church. God's not done yet. He's still saving people. Mm-hmm. So why is it that churches are not growing? Whether they like it or not, the truth is we're not obeying the call. Mm-hmm. We're afraid to get our hands dirty. We're afraid to go out. Jesus said, go out to the highways and the hedges. That's where messy people are. And what we do, we're to compel them to come in so that the house of God will be filled. And many times I say us, me that's been in church all of our life, we don't want that because it makes us uncomfortable. When we fill up the house of God, well, I might have to give up my seat. Somebody's going to sit in my pew. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to sit in my chair. They may take my class. Somebody might take my parking spot. And, God deliver us from that kind of mentality. I had that happen to me one time when I was in Bible college. We had this revival service. I'll never forget it. And I got there early, and I was sitting in the seat kind of up front because I wanted to hear this preacher preach. It was really good. And I remember I got there early, about an hour before service, I had my seat. And one of the ushers came to me and said, "We need you to move." I said, "I've been here an hour." He said, "We still need you to move. We got people coming in." And so I did, and I was so mad. I went up, sat in the last row of the balcony. And I remember during that service, I just happened to look down at that seat where I was at. And that person that heard the message got up and went forward and gave their heart and life to Christ. And God, whipped me, basically about my attitude of, this ain't your seat, giving up things for people because I'm trying to win people to Christ, and so this is what we're talking about. And it's just a reality. And people today have this idea that, well, when I serve Jesus, everything's just going to be great, no problems, no heartaches, no trials, no obstacles. And I've seen them in church. They'll come and they'll get excited for a week or two, and man, they're gun ho. We're going to be here. We're going to be here we're going to be involved. We're going to be committed. We're sold out. And then all of a sudden somebody gets sick, or there's a problem, or there's the car tires up and they've got to pay a bill or something like that. We all have had that happen. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is they get knocked out.
This resides in a bit of a different place with me, and this could be a personal podcast of my own going back to that. But we do have a young man who attends North Campus with us who was with me when I was helping to oversee a youth group at First Baptist Gate City, and we had a midweek service at a place down in the midtown part of Gate City. We called it the Crossroads Community Center. It was a building that was multifaceted in its personality. It was lent out to groups during the weeks and things like that. Right now, it's a tremendous ministry on Mondays regarding clothes and food and things like that. But we had a midweek gathering that basically involved two churches that came together with their youth groups, and we had a large group. We're a large group of young people, 30, 40, 50, 60 sometimes on Wednesday nights. And we started off with praise and worship. We had someone that would come share the word, and the kids, we offered them, those that were ready to lead, to step up and share. And it was a really, really good time. And then the Lord chose to do something that none of us really expected. He chose to send some tough kids. And it changed the personality of things. And suddenly, because we opened up our hearts to some needier, tougher kids, it seemed to create a bit of a divide. And I started hearing complaints. The youth minister at the other church at that particular time started hearing some complaints from people from his church that they didn't want their kids there on Wednesday night with these tougher kids. The message that we were trying to send was, listen, these are the ones we're hoping to reach. Mm-hmm. How are they going to, and knowing some of those family dynamics that those kids were growing up in or growing without, my goodness, there was no better place and no more appropriate place for them to be. Suddenly youth ministry got messy. Mm-hmm. And then what we had happen was something that I did not expect. The youth minister at that other church at that particular time received pressure from the church where he was serving to pull that entire group out. And they went back to the church where they were. It left us with primarily, because my home church where I was serving at that time was basically putting pressure on me to say, listen, don't forget your own church kids. And I'm thinking, I haven't forgotten anybody here. I'm embracing this for what it is. It's gotten tough. It's gotten messy. Mm-hmm. But the fact is we're able to share Jesus with kids who really don't know much about Jesus and certainly don't know anything about Moses, Noah, or anybody like that in the Bible. David, I mean, those were foreign terms to these kids.
See, my question would be to those people, where are they going to go to find the answers that give them life and can bring change in their life? Where else are they going to go?
Well, see, and that's the question that I would try to offer. Now, again, being local, all right, if anybody out there is listening to this podcast today, you're going to know this situation because it created quite a buzz. We tried adding an extra service. We tried doing some things. I thought they were creative. I thought it was trying to meet a need. Then we had some people come back and say, now you're excluding, now you're not doing, and I just thought to myself, if you were here, you could understand. Stop criticizing something. This is actually a beautiful work. And none of these people who criticized that back in the day were with me on the night that one of the toughest kids out of that group called me a few years after the fact and wanted to know how he could be saved. This was one of the tougher kids. One of the arguments that the others were trying to offer here was this. Well, we don't want our kids coming on Wednesday nights to something that they ought to be encouraged by when they're facing these kids during the day during the school. And these kids are causing all the problems at school. They don't really want to be around them on a Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, listen, is your child as far along spiritually as they ought to be? Because if they were, they would see this as a real opportunity. Hey, how about investing the Jesus that your child knows into them so that the school might change? Mm-hmm. There's an instrument of change that we all desire to be. And that was a season of youth ministry that was one for the books for me personally. But there was fruit there that later on down the road, we were able to see some of that. Now, some of those other young people I still see occasionally. They're older now, well out of high school. But, I do have a young man here at North Campus who will remember that because he was one of those who stayed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I had a couple out of First Baptist Weber City, Roger and Lisa Mitchell. Roger's home with the Lord now. But Roger and Lisa stayed with us because they had a heart for those kids that were tougher to reach. And we had some of our more mature youth that stayed with it at that particular time. But listen, ministry ought to be messy.
Oh, yeah, it is.
It ought to be, because if the group you're ministering to are the ones that seem to seemingly have it together, and if you're only ministering to church kids or, church people, hey, are we actually shining light far enough outside the doors of the church to reach a lost community like that? Yeah. So, hey.
I like a thing, I'll go backtrack a little bit here, but we were talking about the old ways of a church and everything, that it needs to be done this way, and not adapting the change. Well, one point that I wrote down yesterday was the 7 that was chosen as the deacons. You said that they were Greek and none of them were Hebrew at all. And I mean, that right there, that's a big change there.
Yes.
That nobody was in.
At this point, it is, because it was all about, they still had issues with the Jews, because in a couple of weeks from now, we're going to get to where Peter even had a problem with Gentiles, and Jesus is like, hey, what I've called clean, don't call impure. And it gives him this dream, basically, and it's where the Gentiles now are receiving the Holy Spirit. And so, that's the whole thing is, and I get some of that, you don't want your kids influenced in the wrong way. I get that. But again, we're trying to reach people. Again, the Chosen series, I've been, I finished watching season 4 last night. But the closer it got to just being, where people worshiped him, cried out, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. And they got these palm branches out. And the whole city was overtaken with people saying, hey, the king has come. It created the biggest mess in the entire world for Jesus and the followers. And And when you watch The Chosen, you're going to see they didn't have it all together. I mean, we read the Bible and think, well, these were all perfect. I mean, and that's what I think people sometimes go to church and they think, okay, I'm going to go to church with perfect people. And I'm going to go to church with people that don't have problems and don't have issues, and their families all get along and never argue, and we're all going to believe the same thing. We're all going to hold hands. We're all going to sing Kumbaya, and it's all going to just be. And the church is a wonderful thing, but that's not the way church is, because you're not going to find a perfect church. You're not going to go to a church where people don't have any problems and don't deal with issues and deal with junk in their life and have to overcome and all these different personalities. That's what makes the church beautiful, is because we're not rallying around all those things. We're rallying around Jesus. So he brings everybody that's different and unique and special and different. He brings us all together, and that's what it's about. And if we could just get past that, and quit worrying so much about me and what I have to have when I go to church and what the service has to be like and what songs we got to sing, and worried about what everybody looks like. Everybody's got to wear this. If you're going to go to church, we're going to go first class. No, you're not. You're going on the same class I am.
Believe it or not, it makes the church look more attractive from the outside whenever you have more imperfect people. It's like, man, I can relate to that really well.
Wonderful point. Yes.
Yeah. It's way more attractive.
And that's what happens is because people's chasing after something they're never going to find. And that's why they never get planted in a church. But this year they're going to go to this church, and then something happens in that church, and then they're going to jump ship in that church, and then they're going to go somewhere else, and then they're going to jump ship there. And they're what we call church hoppers, because they're hopping around everywhere trying to find the perfect church with the perfect pastor, with the perfect people, with the perfect kids, with the perfect situation, with the perfect activities. You're not going to find it. There's no church here that has problems. Every church has issues.
Hey, listen, if the church appears to be too sterile and too perfect, I've got it all together, it's not going to be appealing to people. And I think that's the beauty of the life group, the smaller group gatherings within your church, is it enables people to be more willing to be open about those things. And they can share about the matters and the issues in their life where they ain't got it all together. And they're looking for somebody out there that they can find and establish some common ground with. Mm-hmm. The worship service brings us together. It's the life groups that subdivide us in order that, and I say subdivide only in the fact that it enables us to meet with groups where there is some commonality that can form there. Listen, it's not about being better than people. And sometimes folks will enter a church sanctuary and they'll look around at certain things and say, well, these people, they're probably better than I am. No. If it's Christ, he just enables us to be better off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not better than.
Well, and too, the worship service versus the life group, small group, Sunday school, whatever you want to call it, it's just making the church that's large smaller, where you can feel connected. Because truly in a large gathering, you don't feel as connected as you do when you're in a life group. And that's one of the things we've really been trying to make an emphasis is for our people is to really get, church is not just a Sunday thing. The Christian life's not just a Sunday event. It's a life that you live, and it's best lived in the community of other believers.
Absolutely.
And so when you're doing that on a daily basis and you're living in the mess, so to speak, of life, and it's messy, and you have Jesus there with you, he makes it a beautiful mess. It's a wonderful mess. I mean, that's what this whole Christian life's about, because it's pointing to him who is perfect and who one day is going to create a perfect world and a perfect place where we're going to live in, but it's not here right now. And so we're, learning, growing, trying to get better. And that's what we're seeing in this book of Acts. I mean, it's a wonderful thing to be involved in. And there are going to be challenges. There are going to be difficulties. But thank the Lord, he's overcome all those. And if we'll just stay faithful and realize that we got to speak the truth and be obedient, there's going to be obstacles that are going to come, but we just got to stay faithful to overcome the obstacles. So,
absolutely
agree.
Well, we thank you for listening today to this edition of the Overflow podcast. We hope that you'll join us next week. Happy 4th of July. Have a good time with your family. Cook out some hot dogs, hamburgers. God bless you. We'll see you next week.